bigger people should be accommodated, just like we accommodate the LGBT community. Say, I'm skinny in my head. Yeah, I'm skinny, like I said.
Our favorite high-calorie human is back on her BS and may have just set a world record for new levels of Delulu. We're gonna break down a wild interview featuring the rapper Dank Demas and so much more on today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show where I take on the craziest ideas from across the internet, our politics, and our media, all from an independent perspective. Up first, like I mentioned, plus-sized rapper Dank Demas, the one you may remember from the show a few weeks ago, who sued Lyft after a driver said she couldn't fit into his car.
The Detroit rapper is going viral for something other than her music.
Fans know her as Dank Demas, and they're fuming after a Lyft driver allegedly denied her a ride because of her size.
Well, she just did an interview over on The Breakfast Club, a very popular radio show hosted by Charlemagne, that I think sums up everything that's wrong with modern American culture and the complete lack of accountability and the constant coddling of delusion that we have in this country. We're going to break it down and buckle up and get ready for a wild, wild ride, guys. The interview started strong as she couldn't fit into the pretty large seat they had at the table, and they had to come up with a creative solution instead. Take a look.
How you?
Good morning.
You good?
Good morning.
What's going on? Nice to meet you.
Hi,
How are you?
Stormy.
How you? Hey, King. How you, brother? You good? Nice to meet you, Keys.
Got it. Yep. It's the only seat y'all got?
What you want? What you need?
A bigger chair or something.
Is she already little?
We had
That's what I'm talking about. Good. This is accommodation.
There you go.
Not the couch. They had to bring out a full couch for her to sit on because she couldn't fit into the desk chair. I mean, part of me wants to laugh at this, but part of me wants to cry because this isn't healthy and she's not going to be around for a long time at that weight. But she seems to think that the solution is just for society to accommodate her and other people who are 500 pounds, not to try to help them return to a healthy weight. By the way, guys, can we talk about the fact that this, ironically, the beginning of this, where she can't fit into the chair and needs an entire couch brought over for her to sit in, kind of proves the Lyft driver right when he argued that she couldn't fit into his seat and would get stuck. Like, good luck with that lawsuit, babe. I don't know that you're gonna win. Now, here's the part that had me pulling my hair out, because apparently a new slur just dropped, guys. Take a listen.
You know, you walked in and, you know, you said the chair was too small, so we had to bring the part of the sectional for you to sit in. And you said something. You said, now this is what I'm talking about, accommodations, right?
Yes.
But we live in a world that's not always going to be able to accommodate people that are
we
plus
should,
size.
though. We should, because we not all the same, you know? I feel like we should. Like, why not? I feel like a lot of times people think that bigger people, obese, the F word people should just be in a house, when it's like, we not. Word? Yeah, the F word. I'm not.
You heard that you can't say in your house.
Yeah.
Fat. You don't like it.
Oh,
I'm not saying that word.
Yeah, we don't use it.
Now we can't say fat. Now fat is a slur. The F word, bruh. I mean, look, I can't keep up because I've seen TikTok activists talking about fat is beautiful, fat positivity, reclaiming fat, and now she's out here acting like it's the N-word or something you can't say on radio. Girl, no. It's a word. It can be used meanly, and I don't support that. I don't support bullying or shaming anyone, but it can also just be used to describe things accurately. And this thing where they call it the F word, the hosts tried to play along and indulge this nonsense, and here's what happened.
It could be like some of the clothes that the F people wear, you know, with things hanging out, and y'all, you know, try to wear things that the smart, like, the S people be wearing.
I don't live in a world where the skinny people, when the F people, that's not my reality. I am a human being. I am regular.
The language here turned into a joke. real quick. It becomes hard to follow what people are saying. And why are we coddling insanity? Why are we accepting a false premise that the word fat is a slur? It is not a slur. It is a descriptor that can be used meanly, accurately, neutrally, kindly, or anywhere in between. And we don't need to start talking about the S people versus the F people. What? Am I going crazy, y'all? Is it just me? And I'm sorry, babe, but you're a lot of things. You're not regular. Regular people aren't 500 pounds. So at least in this context, you're not regular. And you can't just, that would be like me saying I'm short, even though I'm 6'3". Like, I'm objectively not short. And just if I identify as short or feel short, I'm still not short. And in the context of body size, you are not regular. Doesn't mean you're a bad person, doesn't mean you're ugly, doesn't mean you're not a beautiful human being, deserving of respect and empathy and love. You are all of those things, just like all of us are. Your body size isn't regular, and you can't just look at us, state an obviously untrue thing, and gaslight us and expect us to be so afraid of offending you that we're not going to point out that what you're saying isn't true. That's not going to work on me, at least, babe. I'm going to say it how it is, and I'm not going to try to hurt anyone's feelings, but if feelings are hurt by basic facts, so be it at some point. Now, here's the part of the interview that frankly made me crash out, like made me want to scream out loud and shake the screen because it's so maddening. It's actually offensive to my soul. But first, a quick message from today's sponsor. Valentine's Day is on the horizon, and let's face it, men can be tough to shop for. That's why I'm excited to partner with today's sponsor, Exter, who can help you find the perfect wallet to gift the man in your life this Valentine's Day. Their wallets are slim, sleek, and super convenient, with quick card access and built-in technology that protects your cards from scammers who steal credit card information with wireless scanning. Plus, their Finder card accessory is perfect for a guy who sometimes loses his wallet. I wouldn't know anything about that. For Exter's special Valentine's Day sale, you can get 30% off now. Just go to the link on screen or in the description and use promo code BRAD to unlock further savings. You'll be glad you did. Now back to today's show.
I just feel like it should be accommodated. Bigger people should be accommodated, just like we accommodate the LGBT community. All those other communities. I just feel like we outside.
You compared your situation to the LGBTQ, and a lot of people would say, well, LGBTQ people don't have a choice to be gay or whatever, but you have a choice to be plus size. Mm-hmm. So they want you to make better choices, eat right, work out, lose the weight.
I cut the clip here because she had no real response to this and the topic was quickly changed. But this is exactly the point. I'm so glad Charlamagne brought this up to push back on this insane notion. Being 500 or 600 pounds is, in almost all circumstances, a choice that is to a large extent within your control. Some people do have unique medical conditions or thyroid issues that make it very hard to lose weight and make it very easy to gain weight. And I have compassion and empathy for those people, though it's still not like set into stone that they will be 600 pounds and there's nothing they can do about it. It is harder for them than it is for someone like me, certainly. But that is not most massively overweight people in this country. It's a tiny fraction of them. And by and large, this stuff is a product of your choices. We are not talking about somebody who's got a few extra pounds around the rib cage or has a slight dad bod or anything like that. We're not talking about a woman who gave birth and hasn't lost all the weight yet or whatever it may be. We're talking about people with hundreds of pounds of excess fat on their body. That is a choice. That is something that happens because of the choices that you make. So to compare it to being gay, which is something people can't change about themselves and often struggle and fight and try very hard to not be that way, and it doesn't work, is insane and, yes, offensive. Part of the reason it's wrong to discriminate against people for being gay is that they can't help it. It's an intrinsic trait, like skin color, though a little different, but it's similar in that sense. I certainly don't want people to be mean to morbidly obese people. I don't think that helps anything, But treating them differently in some context is not inherently evil or immoral the way it is to discriminate against somebody because of their skin color or something, because you're holding people accountable for their choices, not holding things against them that are beyond their control. There's a very fundamental and important distinction there that these people are trying to blur. And I will not stand for it because it's totally illogical and honestly undermines the protections and empathy and sympathy that people have for immutable traits and groups that we don't want to be discriminated against when you start conflating it with things that are literally a choice. But here's the funniest, I guess, but also like most delusional part of the entire interview.
I don't think like that. Like I said in the interview, I don't have a big person head. Like I don't have no, for real, y'all. For real, no, look. I don't have a big person mindset. I'm skinny in my head. I'm skinny, like I said.
Y'all, they were trying so hard to indulge her and coddle her and go along with her delulu, but even they had to laugh when she hit them with the "I'm skinny in my head." Baby, you may be a lot of things in your head, in the real world, in an alternate universe, but in none of them is skinny one of them. Like, seriously, we should treat this with the same seriousness and credulity that we would treat it if somebody said, "I am a zebra in my head." And we can look at them and see they are not, in fact, covered in black and white stripes. They don't have 4 legs, so they're not, in fact, a zebra, and how they feel in their head in this context is irrelevant. They're still not. And I'm sorry, but she's got to either be totally delusional or, to some extent, be trolling us for rage bait. But here's the part of this that kind of gave the game away for me, at least a little bit.
And you said you got an OnlyFans?
I do.
Oh, they running it up, too.
They run it up on OnlyFans?
Man, they running it up.
I don't know. Y'all just gonna have to go see.
How much you making on that OnlyFans?
Thank the moms, you know.
How much you making? Money coming in.
What you making a month?
Of course, she has an OnlyFans. And of course, it's massively popular. Men, straight men, I blame you. You're going to hell for that. This explains it to me to some extent, because we've seen this a lot where internet personalities and aspiring OnlyFans people purposefully go and say and do outrageous things to draw attention to themselves so more people subscribe. It's kind of a vicious cycle of rage bait that we fall into and we play into when we cover them and talk about them like this. But this is just so maddening to me that I couldn't resist. Like, apparently some of you men can't resist this temptress's OnlyFans. I'm not gonna lie, watching that content would be my personal Vietnam. And it's kind of sad. Like, I'm not one to kink shame. If you're into really very overweight people, I guess that's fine, but they are like slowly killing themselves. They are taking decades off their lifespan with this incredibly unhealthy behavior and lifestyle, and you're like into that? That's like your thing? I don't know. I personally would not feel great about encouraging that behavior. And more importantly, I think we just need a serious cultural reckoning where accountability and personal responsibility makes a comeback. And people stop constantly playing the victim and acting like they're not responsible for the products of their choices, or like the entire world has to conform to their feelings and their expectations. This is a sickness, and I'm not talking about the health issues. It's a cultural sickness where personal responsibility is going the way of the dodo bird. And this is just one of many examples, and it's a real problem. What do you guys think? Are you fans of Dank Demas? Will you be checking out her OnlyFans? I hope not. Let me know in the comments. I do want to hear from you guys. Do hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet. Up next, TikTok is literally pushing fake news about President Trump. Multiple viral videos from prominent influencers are claiming that Trump said something very insulting about teachers in America. Take a listen to Mr. Williams, one very popular TikTok personality, and a video he has that's been viewed hundreds of thousands of times.
Yeah, hi, teacher here. Donald Trump just called teachers ugly. He said that the Department of Education has wasted millions of dollars every year on teachers, many of which who are ugly. But Mr. Williams, that's crazy. It is crazy that a man who looks like this, and this, and this, and who's looked like this for many years, had the audacity to call teachers ugly. I'm confused by someone who looks like the Orange Mucinex Man or like Demi Moore's final form in The Substance feels like he has the audacity to talk about anyone's looks right now. I'm so devastated that a man who looks like the sloth in The Goonies said I was hideous. I mean, I don't know, maybe this is gonna make me completely quit teaching and never show my face on the internet again. Listen, I know I'm not the be-all, end-all, and you can call me a lot of things, and I'd probably sit there and be like, yeah, most of those are true, but ugly. Baby, I can't hear that coming from you. I'm not gonna let a man who doesn't know the difference between a nose strip and a chicken strip insult the way that I look. I think that the President of the United States has bigger things to do right now than, I don't know, insult teachers. Anyways, Mr. President, you probably have a lot of Cheeto dust and Doritos to roll around. I'm gonna go back to work, though, and do some lesson plans on my Saturday night. God bless America.
So Mr. Williams wasn't the only one spreading this claim about Trump supposedly in a post calling educators ugly, but I will give him points for some of the things he's saying about Trump being kind of funny, but a lot of people parroted this claim, which, as we'll get into, is not quite right.
She not talking to me like...
Breaking news, this just in. Donald Trump thinks public school teachers are very ugly. I wish I were making any of this up. Unfortunately, I'm not. He posted this on his socials. Called the Department of Education. He called the Department of Education one of the horrible organizations on earth. And I quote, end quote. I can't believe anyone is taking this seriously.
She was, in fact, making this up. The problem with this whole narrative that you just heard and the screenshots that they showed you is that it is all based on a fake post that Trump never wrote, never published to his Truth Social feed, and is not real. And apparently these people didn't do 5 seconds of fact checking before spreading this fake news to millions of people online. That's irresponsible and reprehensible, and particularly ironic coming from teachers and educators who are, at least in theory, supposed to teach students critical thinking, media literacy, fact checking, all these things that they so woefully failed to do in this instance. And guys, you don't just have to take my word for it that this is not a real post. You can look at the liberal-leaning fact checker Snopes, who debunked this viral misinformation. No, Trump did not call teachers ugly in a Truth Social post, Snopes reports. Trump did not post this message. We have rated the image a fake. A thorough review of Trump's feed on Truth Social revealed no such post between February 7th and February 8th, as the date stamp on the purported screenshot indicated. Further, a Google search showed that the search engine had not indexed this post. A search on Google Images brought up a few references to the same screenshot with the same timestamp and numbers of likes and retruths. Typically, when a post becomes viral on social media, several people in different time zones take screenshots of it from different devices with varying aspect ratios. Screenshots of genuine posts also tend to show different numbers of likes and shares, unlike the images of this alleged post. This suggested the only source for the quote was the image itself, another indication it was fake. A search for the same quote in Google News revealed that no reputable news outlet had reported on it either. So no, Trump did not post on Truth Social calling teachers ugly or going on this rant about education. These people are either lying or being incredibly lazy and not bothering to fact check their narratives and information before spreading it to millions of people. And the thing I find funny about this is that Trump says enough genuinely controversial and upsetting things that you would really think that like liberals and progressives wouldn't need to make any up, wouldn't need to spread fake stuff because they could just spread his actual quotes and those would be inflammatory enough at times. They just can't help themselves. And that's why I always roll my eyes a little bit when I hear from like liberal media about right-wing misinformation. There is a fair amount of misinformation on the right, but there's also a lot on the left. And a lot of liberal Americans believe and spread things that are simply not true. And there are so many more like it all over TikTok. What do you guys think? Had you seen this fake narrative spreading? Let me know in the comments and hit the like button while you're at it. Now, we gotta talk about a controversy that's kicking off surrounding the Trump administration right now, because a number of the actions they're trying to take administratively through the executive branch, through Elon Musk and other figures, are being challenged in court. And different federal courts are ordering stays or blocking different things they're doing, which, frankly, is to be expected. And I would have thought that this stuff would work its way up through appeals all the way to the Supreme Court, and we would get some kind of resolution of it. But some people on the right are not seeming to want to wait for that, and are even seemingly calling on the Trump administration to defy federal court orders. As J.D. Vance put it in a tweet, judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. This tweet's going mega viral, and it's understandable why, because it's true that judges aren't supposed to control or limit executives' legitimate power, but the question is which powers are legitimate. That's what's being litigated and what ultimately the courts are supposed to be able to decide. What normally happens is that if a judge issues a ruling blocking something the administration is trying to do, they hold off while they appeal the ruling. But some people on the right are saying Trump shouldn't wait, shouldn't follow the appeal process. In the meantime, should just ignore the ruling. One of the people most prominently making that argument was CNN contributor and conservative pundit Scott Jennings. Take a listen to this clip of him on CNN with Abby Phillip.
But we do know that judges do get to say whether the executive is complying with the law or not. That's been the case for decades, hundreds of years.
Well, I think there's a difference between saying whether you're complying with the law and then you have these individual district court judges setting effectively broad federal policy that is specifically reserved for the president of the United States. I think we do have a constitutional crisis, and it's being caused by these judges. They're not here to tell us. They're not here to tell us how to spend the money. They're not here to set broad federal policy. That is the president's job as elected by the people.
So far, I'm sympathetic to some of Scott's complaints, to be sure. We have seen this pattern play out across administrations where basically, complainants can judge shop. They can go to a particular judge and get things blocked nationwide by just one federal district court ruling. And it is a real problem, though to be clear, it's certainly benefited conservatives and Republicans when Democrats are in power, and they've used this same power to block Biden administration policies. But it may be a real problem. And in fact, there are a lot of very smart people who have wanted the Supreme Court to weigh in on and reduce the scope of these nationwide injunctions, where one judge at just the federal court level can block a policy nationwide. And there may be some truth to that. But I really don't think the correct answer or solution is what Scott says in this second clip.
Just understand where you stand. If a district court judge rules in a way that the president dislikes, should the president listen or should the president defy?
If a district court judge tries to usurp the authority of the chief executive of this country, he should absolutely defy it. There's a difference between broad policy decisions and discrete disputes between parties. That's the difference. If I want a policy decided, I'll take it to the Supreme Court.
But what about checks and balances?
Well, Scott, you're
of a district court judge who elected them.
To the power of district court judges, and I understand your point, Scott. I understand the frustration people have when a district court judge blocks a broad mandate from the chief executive, the elected chief executive. Ultimately, the big issues go up to the Supreme Court. But I guess I would ask both of you, what if a district court judge had blocked Barack Obama's DACA plan, the Dreamers plan, right? And he said, heck with you, I'm doing it anyway. Would you be okay with that? Or would you have a problem with that?
So, wow, there's a lot to unpack here. But I find myself agreeing with the liberal legal analyst here, because frankly, he's saying something that I think conservative legal analysts, most of them would agree with, and certainly would have agreed with when Biden was president, that the president should never just ignore court rulings limiting their authority or power that they don't like. Because the judicial branch in our constitutional system is supposed to keep the executive branch in line and stop them when they go too far or abuse their authority. And maybe you think these opinions and these decisions are wrong. They're incorrect. They're Obama, Biden judges trying to block Trump's agenda. You may or may not be correct. That may be a legitimate concern. It probably depends a lot on the case, the controversy, the judge, the specifics. Regardless, the correct and thoughtful and frankly constitutionally valid approach is to appeal the decision. all the way to the Supreme Court if you need be. And by the way, guys, conservatives have a 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court. It is not to just flout the system, give judges the middle finger, and defy their orders. If the Trump administration actually did that, that would constitute the beginnings of a constitutional crisis and would be a real disaster for our country. They should appeal bad rulings to the Supreme Court, and most likely they will win if the law's on their side, because the court is already predisposed to their side. It's a majority conservative Supreme Court. So if you go all the way there and your policy still gets blocked, it seems to me likely that you probably are exceeding your power or the law. And I think the CNN legal analyst here had a very good point that if Democrats openly defied a federal court ruling, Republicans and conservative pundits would scream tyrant, authoritarian, dictator. They would scream bloody murder. And I would be right there with them saying the same thing. But if it's Trump, some apparently feel differently. I don't. I feel the same all the time in either direction. Now, they argue, and there's some truth to this, but it doesn't really change the whole picture. They argue, Scott Jennings made this point elsewhere in the clip, that Democrats have defied court orders.
Sometimes that district court and judge one guy in Texas shut down Joe Biden.
But you raised the right point. Should the president, the singular president, should he have to share the presidency with 300 district court judges? No, absolutely not.
But the point, though, you made a really good point that there have been judges that shut down some of President Biden's executive actions, and they understand, the Biden administration understood the checks and balances.
The Supreme Court tried to stop me, but they never will.
But not in the way that Donald Trump is.
Who said that? Joe Biden.
Yeah, but Scott, he actually didn't ignore it.
He did. Right. They continued to plow forward with student aid.
How much
did they spend?
Let me set the record.
He actually got deep into
I hated the student loan forgiveness policy.
What did he say out loud?
I thought it was a ridiculous policy. I thought it was unconstitutional. I predicted it would get struck down. It did get struck down, and I applauded. He did not ignore it, though. He went and tried under a different law.
So he ignored it.
You're allowed. No,
that's not ignoring it.
And that's not quite right, but there is a grain of truth to it. So, for example, one of the things the Biden administration tried to do was cancel student debt, have taxpayers pay off $400 billion in student loans for people who had taken out loans that they hadn't paid back yet. And Congress is supposed to spend money, right? They have the power of the purse under our Constitution. And yet they refused to do this. They specifically told Biden, no, we don't want to do student loan cancellation. He tried to do it via executive order, which is unconstitutional and you can't do. And it went all the way to the Supreme Court and got blocked. That $400 billion plan got blocked. Now, what Biden said was, I'll work around the Supreme Court. And he tried to use other legal pathways to institute other kinds of student debt relief and was able to cancel, I think, about $100 billion in other workarounds. But he did not directly defy that order. The $400 billion never was spent. That program was killed. He tried to achieve the same goal through different means that were also being challenged. It was sinister in a way that he was effectively trying to work around the Supreme Court's ruling and didn't really take the lesson of their ruling, but he did not directly defy it. But also, to be fair, the Democrats have done too many things to count to undermine the legitimacy of our judicial system, from screaming about Clarence Thomas and acting like they're bought and paid for, and that's why they rule the way they rule, even though that's really not the case, to major Democrats and a huge chunk of the party openly supporting packing the Supreme Court, which is an actual dictator tactic and would, I think, destroy our judicial system as a check on the other branches, and even going along with Biden's absurd farce at the end of his presidency, where he tried to add an illegitimate amendment to the Constitution via executive order. So Democrats have played a huge, huge role in decline in trust and faith and support for our legal and judicial system. And I always warned them. I really did. I would say, listen, you are going to want this system in place to check the Trump administration or the future Republicans. And they undermine these things at their own peril, but they don't listen to people like me. They listen to the AOCs of their party or whatever. And so they have contributed to this. But ultimately, I do still think that the Trump administration should adhere to rulings, even bad ones, because once you open that Pandora's box of the president no longer listening to federal court rulings, it's a very hard box to close. And a Democrat can do it too. They can say, well, this ruling is obviously incorrect when they rule you can't unilaterally cancel student debt, or you can't unilaterally rewrite immigration law, or whatever it may be. And I support a lot of the objectives of what the Trump administration is trying to do with Doge and Elon Musk and auditing government waste and cutting down bureaucracies and agencies, but no short-term goal is worth when you can just wait and take it to the Supreme Court. Achieving it immediately is not worth eroding the constitutional protections of our system. Not even close, in my view. But what do you guys think? Do you guys agree with Scott Jennings? Do you agree with JD Vance? I am open to arguments. I'm open to different perspectives. Do let me know in the comments, and do hit that like button while you're at it. All right, guys, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please do make sure to subscribe if you aren't yet, and we'll talk again real soon.